Hello, welcome back. I am very lucky today because we have a guest with us. Today, I am joined by Dr. Richie Kirwan. Now, Richie is a registered nutritionist and a senior lecturer in nutrition and exercise physiology. And I believe his research mainly focuses on nutrition and exercise and how it can improve body composition, metabolic health, and cardiovascular health. And he does such a fantastic job of translating those complex nutrition research areas into this practical evidence-based advice, which is why I absolutely love following you, Richie, on your Instagram account, because you really do make it feel so much simpler. Anyway, so welcome, Richie, to the Ruth McFit podcast.
Thanks very much, Ruth. Really appreciate the intro, and absolutely delighted to have a chance to chat with you today.
Well, I've been very much looking forward to it because you made a bit of an impact on me back in 2023. I know I briefly mentioned this before we went live, but you were talking about cardio then, the impact of high intensity cardio and how the 150 minutes of moderate intensity, you can still get similar health benefits, I think you were saying, from going all out cardio. And that's what I remember about the conversation. But I've grabbed you here to talk about something else today, which is supplements. So, which I'm sure you probably get asked about a fair bit, don't you? Because of the world of supplements at the moment.
A little bit. It's topical to say the least. Yeah.
I mentioned in the intro that you are a registered nutritionist. So you're a senior lecturer and a registered nutritionist. I meet a lot of people who are nutritionists, or that's the title that they're using. I know that they're not the same as a registered nutritionist, but it's probably something that people don't realize, that there is a difference between being registered and not. So could you explain that for us, just so that people really know this is a guy that knows his shit?
I'll do my best. So basically, as a registered nutritionist, I'm registered with an accrediting body. Excuse me. That accrediting body in the UK is the Association for Nutrition, and that basically means that I have to, one, meet a certain standard of education and experience and practice to call myself a fully registered nutritionist. And it also means that I'm held accountable to certain standards that I have to meet and maintain. And the difference between that and, let's say, somebody who just calls themselves a nutritionist in the UK is that in the UK, the term nutritionist isn't protected, which means anybody can use it. So let's say my non-existent uncle Humphrey could one day decide, you know what, I want to be a nutritionist, and he could open an account on Instagram and he could call himself a nutritionist, and that's absolutely fine, because there's nobody going to say, hey, you can't do that. And that means that when somebody is a nutritionist and not a registered nutritionist, it means you can't be sure of the quality of their education and the quality of their experience. And it also means that they're not held accountable to anybody. So they can say anything and nobody can do anything in terms of, like, there's not going to be a hearing about, like, oh God, this person said this, and that's completely factually incorrect. It doesn't matter. They can say whatever they want. And
they do.
And they do, yeah, unfortunately. And I'll also say this, like, just because somebody is a registered nutritionist, it doesn't mean that, they're a good nutritionist by any means at all. But it does mean that they have met a certain baseline level of education and experience. And just so people are aware, there's kind of two grades. There's an associate registered nutritionist and then a fully registered nutritionist. Associate is usually there's somebody who's finished their bachelor's degree. Whereas, and once you've finished your bachelor's degree, as long as it's an accredited course, you can be an associate nutritionist. And then to be a fully registered nutritionist, there's other things that you need to do. So, like, it might be through a lot of experience. You apply via portfolio, and you show how you meet all of these certain criteria that are required by the Association for Nutrition. So yeah, it's boring as hell. I remember my own application took me 3 solid days, and they were 3 of the worst days of my life, just putting all of these papers together. But yeah, it's one way of kind of keeping an eye on the standards.
Yeah, and it is a shame that the term nutritionist can be used by anyone. I know that dietitian, for example, is a bit more protected. And I know that there are courses, I used to get confused. I've done quite a few nutrition courses. And I still don't call myself a nutritionist, but I do see a lot of people doing it. And I used to wonder what the difference was, and it turns out it's that they're happy to call themselves a nutritionist. It's not whereas you can say registered. And that's why I wanted actually to get you on here as well, because having somebody with your sort of expertise and knowledge who can look at the research, because the thing I loved about that recent post you did is, now you do need to, if you haven't followed Richie already, you do need to go and follow him, because of the fact that you'll see what I mean by what I'm explaining here. He was talking about collagen and about the studies that were shown as backing up that it does work. And he didn't just provide us with a little bit of information. You created this massive spreadsheet looking at the quality of the research behind the collagen in the studies that she referenced. And I was like, anybody that's quite happy to go and sit and create a database of research, and whether it was high quality, whether it was flagged for different things, is somebody that I need to get on and talk to, because most people wouldn't go to that level of research and understanding. Now, I work mainly with women who are in their 40s and older, kind of hitting that midlife area of life. And I feel like because there are changes that are happening for these women, whether that's perimenopause or just life stresses and things, they can be marketed to quite heavily in the supplement world. And there are supplements that we come across all the time, and there are the blends. And I thought it'd be really nice if we can just pick a few that come up more often, some that you might say are better, others that, we need you to tell us for sure. But creatine is the one that, I take creatine, but I get a lot of women that might be quite scared of taking it because they see their weight spike up. Others that say I had somebody recently tell me that it helped their sleep, which was something I had never heard of before. And so I thought, right, that's it. Let's chat to Richie and get the lowdown on creatine as the first port of call. So what can you tell us about this? Is it worth our money?
So I always say with a supplement, and we'll be able to discuss this with collagen when we get back to it, is like, when you're asking, is it worth your money? What is it supposed to do? And like, what do you want it for? And then that's a better question.
From my point of view, and you can tell me if this is a placebo, because I'm very happy to take something for a placebo if it's making a difference, to be fair. I'm like, fine, if it feels better, then I'm better. I don't, give me sugar pills and tell me it's something else. If it works, I'm fine. But I take creatine. Traditionally, I took it just because I was told I should take it. Like, I have to be honest, I was like, just take it. But last summer, I went away for the whole of the summer and I didn't take my creatine with me. I forgot. And then I forgot to start taking it initially when I got back. And then one day I took it, and without even thinking about it, I thought, what's changed today? I feel a bit more alert. And then I went back and I was like, what's changed? I was like, shit, I started taking my creatine again. I wonder if that could be why. Now, that isn't the kind of the muscular performance, but they are starting to look at it for cognitive performance as well, aren't they? So am I imagining that, or could that have been a real thing?
It could very, very well potentially have been a real thing. What I'll say with creatine is, there are potential cognitive benefits. They're being a little bit oversold at the moment in terms of the quality of evidence. So, we like, again, in the evidence-based nutrition field, we kind of have to hold back and say, well, we can't say that just yet. We can just say, okay, that looks interesting. It's promising. Might be able to help here. The big area where creatine, we're fairly confident with its effects cognitively, is in sleep deprivation. And considering I walk around in a pretty much constant state of sleep deprivation, that's one of the reasons I keep taking creatine, because if I didn't, I would hate to see how I function on a daily basis without it. But it does seem to be useful for helping to improve some bit of cognitive function in people who are sleep deprived. So that's one of its functions. But I suppose, like, just for anybody who's not familiar with it, creatine, it's derived from a few amino acids. So it's kind of like it's almost proteinaceous in nature. And it's something that we produce in our bodies. So that's one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, is that, we produce creatine ourselves to a certain extent. And what it does is, basically, when our metabolism is active. And when we're doing any form of work, and that's both mental work, but also physical work, moving our muscles, we use a molecule called ATP. And ATP, basically, it basically loses a phosphate group. And when it loses that phosphate, it releases energy, and our body uses that energy to do anything. And creatine recycles ATP, and it recycles it very, very quickly. So if you've got lots of creatine in your muscles, you can recycle that energy quickly, and you can have a relatively high output of intense energy for a few seconds. It doesn't last particularly long, but it does help. So creatine is really beneficial for physical activities where we use really powerful movements, sprinting or lifting weights. And then after about 10 seconds of like really, really intense activity, we've usually depleted it quite significantly, and it can take a few minutes to recharge it back up again. But if you take creatine, you actually load more of it into your muscles. And if you have more, you basically kind of improve your ability to do those high intensity activities like sprinting or lifting weights, which is why it's such a popular gym supplement. And if you can lift weights a little bit heavier, or get a couple of extra reps in, maybe in the long term, you can get a little bit of extra muscle growth, but it definitely improves strength and power output.
Yeah. Okay. I'd hate to see what my sprinting was like if I wasn't taking it then. But I've also heard that it stays in your system for a little while. If you were to miss a few days of taking it for all a week, it's not the end of the world, is it? It's one that
no. So creatine doesn't, from the physical perspective, it doesn't work acutely. So what you need to do is you need to build it up in your muscles to get it up to a higher level. And basically just taking, your standard 5-gram dose every day, it'll get you there in a couple of weeks. And then once it's loaded up, you just take it every day, and that's it. Doesn't matter when you take it. If you stop taking it, your muscle stores will go back to normal within about 4 to 6 weeks. So it takes a little bit of time to get there. So if you miss a day, it's not the worst thing in the world at all. It's actually the furthest thing from the worst thing in the world.
I mean, that's the thing with supplements in general, isn't it? The other thing I've seen, and I've been told this quite a few times, and I'm sure I saw something quite negative where somebody took it to the extreme, but I've heard of people taking like double doses of creatine because they say that it helps them like power on through at work and things like that. I haven't ever done that. But I've had quite a lot of PTs saying that they do this, and some have just done it as a one-off, one day taking extra. And I think it would be Instagram, somebody saying that they did it for a longer period of time and it didn't end particularly well, but I can't even remember why it didn't end well. Is that something that actually has been researched?
So there's not a huge amount of research on higher doses. There is some. So it's difficult to say what the effects are. So when we take creatine, I said it kind of fills up your muscles. There is a point where your muscles get saturated with creatine. So they're not going to like increase anymore if you take any more. There could be potential benefits cognitively. Larger people should probably take more. The standard dose is like 3 to 5 grams. If somebody's really big and has a lot of muscle, they can take more. That's no problem. I will say in general, taking more creatine is not a problem because your body will just excrete the excess that it doesn't use. And we do have studies in children that are born with a condition that inhibits their own creatine production. And those kids are on very high doses of creatine, like 40 grams a day for years of their life. And they're fine because they absolutely need it. So it's not a problem if you take it. There are some potential situations, people with certain medical conditions where they might need to be a little bit more wary of it, and they would need to speak with their doctors. Anybody with like renal conditions, for example, might be worth speaking with a doctor. But for the general healthy public, taking extra is not a problem, but it may just be a bit of a waste of money.
That's probably going to be what you say throughout the episode, actually. And just to touch on it briefly, why do people put on weight when they first start taking creatine? Because it really does stop people from taking it, even though it's not body fat.
Yeah, so that's actually a huge, let's say, issue that I have when recommending it, because people do genuinely worry about it. So when people take creatine, because creatine builds up and gets stored in your muscles, creatine also causes it basically draws water towards it. So if you have more creatine in your muscles, you've got some more water in your muscles as well. So what happens then is some people can experience a bit of weight gain after loading with creatine. So let's just say somebody loads creatine for a week. Maybe from the start of the week to the end of the week, there could be an increase of a half a kilo or maybe even a kilo of weight in some people. And some people see that. And if people are obsessed with a number on the scales, that can be scary. But, and this is the really, really important thing, a lot of that is water that's in your muscles. And what's really, really cool about it is, I remember the first time I started taking creatine, and I noticed that within a week, I looked leaner, even though my body weight had gone up. And the reason for that is because if your muscles look bigger, or are actually bigger because they're filled with a little bit of extra water, and you're maintaining the same body fat, you look leaner because your muscles look better. So I try to get this across to people. Forget the flipping number on the scales. Okay, it's just a bloody number. You haven't gained fat. Your muscle size has technically increased because you've got more water inside it and you're more powerful. So, just stop. It's very easy for me to say stop obsessing over the number on the scales. I know a lot of people do, but in this case, it's, quantitatively, we know exactly where that extra weight is coming from.
And also, it's not going to keep going up.
No, it just gets to a point and it stops.
Yeah. So if you are in a calorie deficit over time, it will still go the other way. It will just be that initial part, won't it? But yes. Oh gosh, the scales. I could have a whole podcast episode on please, can we not just use the scales as a form of measure of progress? Now I want to talk to you about the collagen. I want to definitely get back to this. So I think it was Davinia Taylor who you said that you didn't know who she was. You hadn't heard of her, which I'm impressed with.
I'm still not 100% sure. I think she was a soap actress or something like this.
See, I don't remember her from anything like that.
I don't watch a lot of television, definitely don't watch a lot of UK soaps. So I had no idea who she was. And some people were like, oh, you should have done more research. And I was like, why? She's still talking crap.
Why? You don't need to do much research to see that she was talking nonsense.
The video, the reason I even kind of wanted to talk about that reel is because she was promoting something that is getting promoted a lot recently, and it's distrust of the medical system and distrust of science and distrust of dietitians. And I'm not saying that we should blindly trust anybody, but we have professionals who spend a lot of time and many years of their life learning to be good at something and to know something very, very well in terms of health, supplements, nutrition and stuff like that. And for her to just kind of say that they were all gobshites, as she was saying. Yeah,
I think it was evidence in why do we always need to see the evidence in quotation marks, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it was basically insulting everything I stand for. And I stand for evidence. And the reason I stand for evidence is it's very, very easy to say, here, take this works. It's like, what's the evidence? You don't need the evidence for it. I know this works. You take it. It's good. It's a great way to sell something to some people, but it's also a great way to take advantage of people. And I'm sick of it. I've gotten to a point in my career now that I've seen so much misinformation on social media, and it infuriates me because it is eaten up by the general public. And that's not the general public's fault. It is the fault of the people who are spreading that misinformation. And I get incredibly angry about it. It forms part of my research here at the university. So I've one of my PhD students, a large part of her PhD is focused on misinformation and where people get, the information and the kind of cognitive biases that people develop around nutrition information and stuff like that. So it is fascinating. But it's also very, very real, and it's having major impacts on people. And it could be something as benign as like somebody spending a little bit of extra money on a collagen supplement that they don't need. But it could also be as, catastrophic as somebody deciding to, do a dietary pattern that's complete, or give up a treatment for a medical condition, or go on a dietary pattern that is just going to impact their long-term cardiovascular health negatively. So
sometimes, there's that whole thing that you don't know what you don't know. And I think that sometimes people like her, she maybe it's coming from just a place of ignorance, like she's not tried to find out. I don't know if I was being optimistic, because I look at it and I go, surely she's been advised by people and knows. And then there's another part when you then look at the comments and see that people maybe don't want to know. They're taking it, like I was talking about placebo. They've noticed a difference and that's enough for them. Whether that difference is based on the fact that there is actually a difference, or whether they were just eating no protein in their diet at all and it has made a bit of a difference, I don't know. I've been getting shown again and again. I wasn't going to mention it on the podcast because I was like, but I've been getting these posts from a lady just coming up in my feed. I obviously looked and watched it once, and now I'm getting them all the time. And she talks about toxic bucket, and she's talking about skin conditions, eczema and psoriasis, and how they're actually parasites and toxic load and all of this type of thing. And these sorts of messaging are crazy, but she's a doctor. But then when you go in, and I thought it was a joke when people said this, she's a chiropractor and then a functional, she calls herself a natural something, but it's like her page is all about food and health and things like that. And I'm like, I thought people joked when they said chiropractors were giving out information on that, but she seems like she truly believes everything she's saying, but it's not based on any evidence, or not really, loosely based on evidence.
But this is a problem with misinformation. Is like the sources that you get it. So like the word doctor can be very, very misleading. So it can mean a medical doctor. It can mean somebody with a PhD. And then if it's a PhD, which is my case, so I'm not a medical doctor, but I have a PhD in clinical nutrition. So
yeah.
My PhD focuses on nutrition, but other people have PhDs in completely unrelated fields. Like somebody can have a PhD.
Gynecology.
Yeah, for example, or somebody can have a PhD in what is it recently? This is somebody who I saw recently. They have a PhD in something to do with cancer.
Yeah.
And that sounds very impressive. Oh, they got a PhD in cancer. That has nothing to do with nutrition. So if this person is giving out nutrition advice, they have no qualifications or skill set or any background that allows them to give that advice. If their PhD research focused on them doing research on cancer cells in a petri dish for 3 years in university, they don't know anything about nutrition and they shouldn't be speaking about it. But they're doctor in front of their name and they research cancer so everybody looks at it. Same goes for a medical doctor talking about nutrition. Medical doctors get virtually no nutrition education during their entire the entire process. And now that said, I know a lot of medical doctors who've gone on to do master's degrees in nutrition and further study in nutrition, and that's fantastic, and they talk about it. And then you have the chiropractors or the functional medicine experts who will call themselves
I think she
doctor.
calls herself both chiropractor and functional something. And
look, basically, if you're listening for nutrition information on social media, if somebody's a chiropractor or if somebody has functional anywhere in their title, like just turn around. It's just like that's not for you. Okay, it's like it's a kind of a good rule of thumb.
Yes, you do. I mean, I know that we've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's really important because, and I knew this would happen because it's something that I find frustrating, but I find it more frustrating because I see that people are going, thank you so much. I really needed to see this information, but it's not based on any evidence. So if we're thinking about Davinia Taylor, now she's getting quite angry. She seemed very angry in the Gobshite post about collagen. And she was saying she knows it works. Now, I'm going to fess up. A little while ago, I took collagen. I don't take it anymore, but I took it. Again, it could be a placebo. Very happy for it to be. But I noticed that my nails seemed better, and then I was scared to stop taking it. Anyway, I have since stopped taking it. My nails haven't fallen off. Everything is all right with the world. But I think the posts on social media can be quite extreme one way or the other. And your post, what I loved about it is it just kind of was very balanced. Here are the facts. So what I'm seeing a lot is you shouldn't ever take collagen, but then you go on to examine.com, the database, and it's showing that sometimes it has improvements in these areas. And then you hear other people saying, take collagen, it's the best thing ever. And the thing is, it's not, it's just that it might not be worth your money taking collagen, isn't it? There's other things, it might help with, but other things do them better. Am I right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, so like Collagen is an interesting one. Like, so we do research with collagen here at Liverpool John Moores University as well, looking at things like tendon health. And there are some areas where research is ongoing. Can we say, okay, I'll give you an example. We have a study that was published from here, and it showed that there were improvements in tendon structure and function with a collagen supplement, while the people were, while the participants were also doing special like rehabilitation resistance exercises to improve their joints. So they were doing this rehabilitation exercises and taking collagen. So that's one thing. So doing rehabilitation exercise and taking collagen is better than the placebo, and the placebo in the group was maltodextrin, which is a carbohydrate. So something completely unrelated. So like you have to ask the question, right? If the other group was taking carbohydrate, well, what if you just gave them another protein supplement like whey protein? Would there have been the same improvement? And we can't say that. We don't know. Because we don't have that research there. And I said that with the what I was saying about Davinia's the study that she claimed was evidence for everything. An awful lot of those studies had no proper control group. And again, that doesn't mean that collagen doesn't work. It may very, very well work for certain things, and it may have different mechanisms for working for certain things. Like some people may take it and they may get an improvement in skin quality, or they may have, one of the very interesting areas is reductions in joint pain. That's a really interesting one. And we think that actually has to do with specific types of collagen and very small doses, and it's more of a kind of an immunological effect. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, but the level of evidence that we have to say it does work is low. Okay. And it's not something we could write home about. And I wrote an article for the Irish Examiner, which is a newspaper back in Ireland, last week. And one thing I said in it was, if collagen was a new drug that had just come on the market, and if it had the level of evidence that collagen currently has to support it, you wouldn't be able to say that it does half the things that it does. You just like it. You would be like, there's not enough evidence to market this drug. What are you trying to do? But because collagen is not a drug, it's a supplement that is, relatively easy to get your hands on and to market very, very well, and to mark up the prices very, very easily. You can some people can do whatever they want with it.
I think it must have been the study about joint pain. It was saying there's new research out that shows that it can help with this, that and the other. And then when you see the posts on Instagram saying it's that people are just trying to make money, etc., which you probably are, I was like, where is the middle ground? Where is this balance of kind of saying we can look at the evidence, it's small. We don't know if these people were eating other proteins in their diet at all, because you can do that. And maybe it's just me, but I want to see the full picture. I don't want to just be told you can't or you should. I want to know the why. And I sometimes feel that because you only get probably a short amount of time on social media, yours was the first post that I saw where it treated people like, we can actually tell you what that means, that there might be potential benefits, but it might also not be worth your money. And if you are going to buy it from anywhere, don't buy it from there.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, like a lot of people were kind of upset in the comments because they were saying like, oh, I got benefits out of it. And people very, very well may get benefits out of it. Like I'm not here to deny somebody's personal experience. Like certain individuals may get a benefit from collagen. Can we say exactly who that is? No. Can we say everybody will get a benefit out of it? Absolutely not. Can we say that they'll get a benefit for all of the multiple things that are claimed about collagen? Definitely can't. But some people might. And you mentioned that you stopped taking collagen. Like I'll say this, like my dad had about 2 years ago had open heart surgery. Okay. That's a big deal. Okay. And I think collagen can be part of a kitchen sink approach. And what I mean by that is you just throw everything at a problem. So I wanted my dad's recovery to go as well as possible. So I said, look, here, take some collagen just in case it helps with like literally sealing your entire sternum together and like helping you heal a bit better. Because like we were doing everything else for him. And I said, like, it's a bag of, a bit cheap bag of collagen is whatever. I said, just take this, see how it goes. It may help. It may do nothing. All we're losing is some money. I was fully aware of what I was getting into with that, and I have no problem with that. And that's kind of like in line with my values as well.
It's making an informed choice. I think that's
Yeah.
what you just want to do. It's knowing. And that's what I feel like that's what I felt like when I took it. And I only stopped taking it because I forgot to order some. And then, and then it just went on for a week or more. And so, maybe I will again, but I'll do it knowing that if I'm not putting on my sunscreen and not doing all the other things, eating enough protein, that it's a drop in the ocean compared to the bigger impact things. But it's often the price of the more upmarket brands for the same product is a lot. So I guess that could be why it's so controversial, because it does feel like there's a lot of controversy around collagen at the moment. It's not the only one, but it's the one I'm seeing a lot. There is another one, though, that has got a lot of heat on it at the moment, which is electrolytes. That one I have seen exactly the same. Either you absolutely should not be taking it, do not waste your money on electrolytes, or people marketing it. Again, the reason I want to talk about this is I know I exercise quite a lot. So I do lose, if I'm going out for a run, I sweat a lot. I'm a sweaty person. On those days, I will take with me, if I'm doing a long run, I'll take with me in my water bottle some electrolytes, not super strong ones, but I take some with me. And I feel quite confident that that isn't going to do me any long-term, negative effect. But I do find the claims again of nobody, unless you're exercising abroad, I think is what I heard, in the extreme heat would need, and I'm there, salty face because I've been sweating so much that I'm thinking, I don't know if it needs to be so black and white with that either. So I'd love your take on electrolytes.
Yeah. So for anybody who's not familiar, electrolytes, they're basically mineral salts that we use for an awful lot of functions within the body, but particularly water balance, nerve impulse, and muscle contraction. So the main one is sodium. The next one will be potassium, then calcium and magnesium. And we sweat them out a lot, particularly the sodium. We sweat that out quite a bit. And so we've got these electrolyte supplements, which are basically these salts, and they're supposed to give them back to us. Now, I have worked as a nutritionist for 11 years now. And in my 11 years, I have recommended electrolytes for 2 clients in all that time. And they were individuals doing endurance exercise competitively in hot environments. And the reason for that is when you sweat more, you're going to lose more electrolytes. Some people are what we call salty sweaters, which means they lose a lot of salts, and they may benefit from taking them. And it can be a good idea, because if you start to really kind of deplete your electrolytes, which is hard to do, but like if you are out in the sun and exercising for a long time and sweating a lot, it'll affect muscle contraction, and it can affect dehydration levels as well. But the way they're marketed these days is everybody should be taking them, because if you're not taking an electrolyte supplement in your water, you're not absorbing any of the water. You're not getting hydrated from it, which is absolute bullshit. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I should have asked if I can say that.
Stacey Sims said something like that recently, didn't she? Dr. Stacey Sims.
Well, let's not get into
Stacey
Sims.
Yeah, she complicates things that
Very
probably
much.
don't need complicating. Yeah, I found that weird. You don't hydrate on just water. I'm like, I think you do.
And I can guarantee you most certainly do. And we have plenty of studies that show it. And the only time that we see that electrolytes, and these are electrolytes in very, very small amounts added to a little bit of water, they improve hydration a little bit in people who are exercising hard. Just a little bit.
So on my hot long distance runs, maybe isn't even essential. I think I would notice bubbling, like crampy bubbling in my calves sometimes. So I thought, maybe it's that.
So that's the interesting one. People take it for cramping, and cramping is genuinely fascinating in endurance sports. We're still not 100% sure what's going on with cramping. We did think it was issues with electrolytes, and that was one of the reasons that I've recommended it to some of my athletes in the past, is because of issues with cramping. And it did resolve, but not entirely. So it could be involved, but we're not sure. Unfortunately, the science is still not kind of concrete on that at all. But
Yeah.
the problem is that, yeah, they're being marketed to everybody to take them. The issue is that most electrolytes are predominantly sodium. Okay.
Yeah.
And the issue with that is in the modern world, we consume excess sodium. I'm not 100% sure what the UK intake is, but the kind of recommended upper level is 6 grams of salt.
Yes.
It might actually be 5 grams according to the World Health Organization. And in the UK, we are consuming more than that on average. So if you're adding extra salt to somebody's diet who's already too salty, what you're doing is you're increasing the risk of high blood pressure. And high blood pressure is one of the biggest and also most silent contributors to heart disease that there is.
Okay.
So like if you've got like a very processed diet already and you're just like, let's go and add some more electrolytes, you're just salting yourself a bit too much.
Too much seasoning. That's the hydration index, isn't there? I mean, isn't skimmed milk meant to be the most hydrating thing on there? And then full fat Coke, which I have to be honest, like if I was doing a long event and somebody gave me a full fat Coke, I crave that sometimes after a run. And I think that is just that thirst, that sugar, that caffeine. I don't often have it here, but that tastes good. But so there are things that will hydrate you in theory quicker if you're dehydrated, and electrolytes isn't even the top of the list there, is it?
Oh no, and the reason like things like milk and like juice hydrate a little bit better than water. Like, don't get me wrong, water hydrates.
What does water it really? That sounds crazy.
I know, absolute madness. I know. Water hydrates. Just milk does it a little bit faster. Skim milk.
Revolutionary.
Milk does it a little bit faster because of its sugar content, and Coke does it a little bit better because of its sugar content. That little bit of extra sugar just allows, because sugar helps us to transport sugar and salts across our digestive system, helps to bring water in with it as it does that. But everybody's against sugar because sugar's evil, right?
Oh yeah, that's
according
evil
to,
now.
according to the internet.
He's taking everything fun away, because not everything has to have like the super nutritional benefit. It can sometimes, in moderation, be for enjoyment, can't it, as well?
Absolutely.
But saying that, one thing I did learn about the full fat Coke was that if I had a glass of water first, my craving for full fat Coke would also disappear. Okay, well, electrolytes, I will tell my husband as well, because he likes to sauna and he normally takes a little jug of electrolytes into the sauna with him, thinking that that would be beneficial. I'll tell him he's all right. You'll be okay. You'll survive. Nothing terrible is going to happen. Okay. Protein powders. I know there are many, but the main one being whey protein. I make quite a lot of recipe reels, and I will get comments from people going, oh, thank goodness you're not using artificial whey protein in all of your recipes, which isn't like an intentional thing. I think I just want to use things people have got at home, just more likely to have. And I have a scoop in my breakfast, but there is a fear about it being this ultra processed food and it being bad for us. And I thought getting the lowdown from you about the use of whey protein, like when it can be useful and if we should fear it in any way, would be good.
What I say to some people is, if you're afraid of whey protein because it's processed, you should probably stop eating cheese, because they're two sides of the same coin. So whey protein, for the longest time, whey was a waste product. It was a byproduct of the cheese making industry. So like, Little Miss Muffet sat on her top of eating her curds and whey. Yeah. So the whey drained off from cheese. The cheese was the valuable product, and the whey, it was actually like they had to pay to get rid of it. Like to dispose of it properly, because you couldn't just empty it into like rivers and things like that, because it would cause eutrophication of the rivers. But they realized that there was quite a bit of protein in this whey. And then it turned out that protein was very, very high quality. So they just removed the water from it, and the sugar was already removed, and they had this very, very high protein product that was exceptionally good quality protein. And then they just added some, sweeteners to it, some flavors, and there you go, protein shakes. And now it's become a massive industry. They're absolutely fine. Like people will say it's ultra processed. Yes, it's ultra processed, but it is just a protein. It's that so we could get into the whole ultra processed debate here in a second, but there are many things that the ultra processed category encompasses many different foods, and the ultra processed category that we use today has nothing to do with nutritional quality. It's all to do with degree of processing. So the most common thing that I say is like most supermarket brown breads, like wholemeal brown breads, are classed as ultra processed because of some of the additives, but they're incredibly health beneficial because they're very high in fiber, and you know they're genuinely beneficial to people's health, and we have studies that prove that they're beneficial to health. Whey protein, we have lots of studies that prove it's beneficial to health. Corn, which is like a vegetarian meat alternative, is an ultra processed food, but it's incredibly beneficial to health. And we have so many studies. But within that same ultra processed category, we've got donuts and crisps and chocolate bars. And from a nutritional perspective, they're not so good. And we know that this whole ultra processed madness, it's a blanket term that is very unhelpful.
There's a book, isn't there? The Chris Van
Collagen.
I want to say, and I listened to it out of interest. And when you listen to that, you'd come away going, well, that's it. I've got to. But then you very quickly realize that you can use common sense for the term ultra processed. And there is just a bit like where you're like, well, I know that if I live off crisps and chocolate and those things, I'm going to feel a bit shit. But if I cut out everything that had, what did they say? Like any ingredients that you can't pronounce or whatever it is, somebody said was the term. Although I did hear somebody say in that case you can't have Worcester sauce because nobody can pronounce it. But you wouldn't be eating a lot. There'd be a lot of really nutritionally beneficial food that you just wouldn't be eating.
Oh, absolutely. What I say to people is it's not that I'm saying that ultra processed foods aren't a problem. What I'm saying is the fact that in the UK, about almost 60% of the diet for the average person is made up of ultra processed foods. That's a problem because it means they're not eating things like fruit, vegetables, nuts, legumes, whole grains. They're eating mostly processed foods. But a good balanced diet that has all of those beneficial foods in there, you can absolutely fit in some ultra processed foods in there and be very healthy. And they can actually encourage people to follow an overall healthier dietary pattern as well. So like I drink Ribena very regularly during the winter. So there's a Ribena. So I don't drink the regular Ribena. I'm not a fan. But
is it the mold, the winter
one? Spice?
Yeah.
I love that stuff so much.
I love hot Vimto in the winter. That's like hot Vimto.
So it's a great way to stay hydrated during the winter. Like sometimes I can't do tea all the time, you know, or sometimes I want to reduce my caffeine a bit.
So with you. And then people go, oh, you can have a herbal tea. I'm like, but it's not a hot Vimto, is it? So it's not quite the same. But again, there's no need to be perfect, is there?
But then who's deciding on what perfect is? I think perfect, like somebody at some point has kind of decreed that anything that is artificial or anything that is processed to a certain extent is bad, and that's absolutely crap. It's just untrue, and it creates an unachievable standard that some people are trying to aim for, unfortunately.
Which is the type of thing that then leads to that all or nothing. I can't do it perfectly, so I can't do it at all. Whereas there is this middle ground of most of the time aiming for those meals with plenty of protein, fiber, and that make you feel like you're getting more energy, those types of things. And then having the other things that you enjoy just because you enjoy them less often, but really enjoying them, not taking up the majority of your diet. So protein powders, I do whey isolate, but that's mainly because I noticed it didn't bother me for bloating as much as other ones. I'm slightly lactose intolerant, but people will take pea protein, soy protein, any that are better than others, or you just stick to whey if you can, if you're not.
No, I don't actually have a preference for it. I would say if you're using a protein powder to supplement your diet, most of them are pretty much all the same. I would actually avoid against using collagen if it's from a just wanting to increase the protein in your diet, because
Yeah.
collagen is actually quite a low quality protein, and it's actually one of the only incomplete proteins that is commonly available, because it actually lacks an entire amino acid called tryptophan, whereas all plant proteins virtually have all of the amino acids. Plant proteins are absolutely fine. Some people are not fans of the flavor, but I will say that they're getting so much better flavor wise. And if you want to use a plant protein, by all means do. Some plant proteins actually have additional benefits. So for example, soy protein has the added benefit of helping to actively lower cholesterol as well. So it can help lower LDL cholesterol, which is really, really impressive. So I try to get soy protein, and not as a powder, but like with tofu and tempeh and stuff like that, quite regularly in my diet. But yeah, I say whatever you like. If you want to get some protein in, if it's like putting it into a porridge or a shake like that, whatever tastes nice, go for it, because you're likely to stick with it.
I also thought that you were going to say that. If I'm honest, I knew that you wouldn't be adverse to it, but it's good to hear it, and it opens my mind up when I see on Instagram that people are scared of these types of things because of the messaging out there as well. Okay, I've got a couple more things I'd love to ask you about. One of them we can touch on briefly, but it's quite a big area, and that's magnesium. And I say it's big because there's different types of magnesium that are meant to do different things, and there's Epsom salts in your bath and things like that as well. So I've heard it can help with sleep, anxiety, cognitive function, aches and pains. So what are we looking at here? Is it something that is worth taking if you're sleep deprived, for example, if you're struggling with sleep? Let's start there.
Magnesium, really, really interesting mineral. It is involved in a lot of different reactions in the body. Okay. And the marketing spiel is always, oh, magnesium, it's involved in 300 different enzymatic reactions. Super important. Yeah, it is. If you weren't getting any magnesium at all, then that would be a problem. You would become deficient. But most people aren't deficient. But the marketing spiels will tell you that everybody's deficient, and that's not the case. So magnesium deficiency itself is quite rare. Let's say poor magnesium intake is not that rare. So I think between 1 in 7 and between 1 in 10 and 1 in 7 people are kind of getting less than the lower recommended nutrient intake for magnesium. But that's between 1 in 10 and 1 in 7. That's not everybody at all. So that's far, it's a very small minority of people are potentially not getting enough magnesium in their diet. And I would say, if you're concerned about your magnesium intake, first have a look at your diet and see, right, how can I improve that? Can I get some extra whole grains in, some more dark green leafy vegetables, some more legumes into my diet? Because that will definitely help. Now, when it comes to sleep, the people are always talking about magnesium and sleep. The evidence is not fantastic. In some studies, in individuals who are genuinely magnesium deficient or have very, very low intakes of magnesium, there is a signal that it may help with sleep onset a little bit. But it is it's not like taking a tranquilizer. It's not going to knock you out. Some people will take it and they might find a great benefit out of it, and fantastic for them.
Is that because it relaxes? Is that because of the muscle relaxant? Maybe?
So yeah, it does have a muscle relaxing effect. But for the majority of people who are getting enough magnesium in their diet, adding extra magnesium is not going to improve that effect. So, and this is a common thing with supplements. Taking more is not necessarily a good thing, and in some cases it can be genuinely a bad thing. So, like, again, if you want to go with a kitchen sink approach and you're struggling with your sleep, try some magnesium. It might help. It also might not.
But look at the other habits, the lifestyle things first, and think whether.
And most people don't want to do that. Like, most people don't want to, like, I'll get some blackout blinds, or I'm going to tweak the temperature in my room, or I'm going to wear a sleep mask, or I'm going to go to bed at a regular time. I'm going to stop looking at screens at a certain time. Most people don't want to do that. They just want a pill. But then when people do take a pill, they might be doing other things as well. So it's very, very hard to tease out what's actually causing the benefit. And I'm not saying that taking it doesn't help. It very, very well may help. But in general, for the majority of people, it probably won't.
I mean, that you're up against it in nutritional research, really, aren't you? Because when you're studying people, it's observational and you can't know for sure what else they've changed around it.
As a researcher, and I say this all the time to my PhD students, the worst thing in research is the people. And I don't mean that in a bad way against them, but it's hard to manage people. It's hard to get them to do what you want them to do. And it's hard to know what they're doing outside of that if they're making other changes, because they do, even if you tell them not to.
Yeah, because you might be wanting to do everything right because you're helping this team and you just think, and even though you might not think it's changing things, the fact that it will have made a difference to your baseline will make a difference to the research. But yeah, I know you're up against it. Now, the other thing that is coming up a lot, I get sent people going, can you have a look at this supplement and tell me if it's worth taking? I wouldn't know 100%, but what I have noticed is that a lot of the menopause supplements that people send me to look at, and there's normally a couple in particular, is that the amount in the ingredients seems to be lower than if you were just taking it on its own. Actually, the ones that I've got specifically to mention didn't have this in as a main ingredient, but often I see ashwagandha coming up high up the list. And I'm thinking, it'd probably just be cheaper to take the ashwagandha, which for those of you that don't know, it has a bit of some studies showing that it can help with, if you're in a stressful period of life, it can help with the impact of that. Am I right? You correct me if I'm saying them, potentially. So I'm like, well, maybe people are feeling like it's working because of the ashwagandha in it. But there's also this long list of ingredients, and it looks to me, as somebody that isn't an expert in looking at the research here, that there's a lot of ingredients that perhaps are there to look fancy, and there's other ones that maybe make a difference. So I did send you a couple of the more popular ones I get asked about, and I would love your thoughts on blends anyway, because these are the things that most women are getting marketed at this mid stage of life. But the Happy Mammoth was one that gets mentioned quite a lot, and that's got the main ingredient is vitamin B6. Then it has fennel seed extract, maca root extract, chamomile extract, broccoli sprout, chaste tree, berberine, sorry, and then it carries on ginseng, ashwagandha's in there, and then they don't have the amounts, but rosemary and wild yam. First impressions.
I'll say this. My partner has a term for supplements that are sold around menopause, and it's, they're all subject to the menopause tax. Whereas you can get any supplement, and if you put the word menopause onto the label, you can increase the price of it considerably. And that's really, really unfortunate, because I think women going through menopause are absolutely preyed upon by the supplement industry and people who put out misinformation on social media, unfortunately. So like you kind of have to ask, what are these supplements hoping to do? Like, what do women experience during menopause? And then why
I would say
would you
balance your hormones is the term that I always see. Balance your hormones.
Yeah. So balance your hormones is generally, if you hear somebody say that, you can tell that they are talking out their backside. If you want to balance your hormones during menopause, you can speak with your GP and you can get a referral to a HRT specialist for hormone replacement therapy, and that is actually balancing your hormones. And I'll say this, like, so I'm a nutritionist, obviously not a doctor, so I can't recommend HRT, but I do recommend and have in the past recommended that some of my female clients who are perimenopausal, menopausal, I recommend speak with your doctor about it. Just find out what your options are at this point.
Right.
And I've had some clients who they didn't know what was wrong with them, as in they were just struggling with life. Sleep was awful. They were tired all the time, hot flashes all the time. And I said, okay, look, it's this time in life, have a chat with your GP about it. And a lot of women are scared of HRT, and I'll get onto that in a second. Some of them, they got put on HRT, and it was the greatest thing. It changed their lives. They're sleeping better, finally. More, and because of that, when you're sleeping better, it changes a lot of things in your life. It makes exercise a lot easier. It makes eating well a lot easier. It's a good way to be.
I think we can be stubborn, though. It's not going on HRT. I'm 44 now, and there's a little bit of me that's like, it can't. That sleep feels a little bit worse, but I'm not old enough to be perimenopausal yet. I think it's like, no. But obviously it's a normal thing that happens, but I think we cling on to our youth.
But like, I think that's normal. And nobody wants to take anything. People almost see it as like, oh no, I've got to take something now. Or like, or people are proud of the fact I'm not taking any pills, and they kind of like they say it with pride and stick their chest out. It's like, I don't take anything, and like, yeah, good for them.
They might not have had any symptoms, whereas somebody else might be having debilitating symptoms. So
exactly, and that's the thing with menopause; it affects everybody differently. And HRT works for some women, doesn't work for others. And that's something that's really, really important, and that really, really needs to be taken into account. That it's not, the solution, but it is definitely something worth having a chat with a GP about. But like, looking at the list of the ingredients that you sent over to me, one thing worth pointing out is it's got a load of really, really interesting plants in there, and they're all extracts. What does that mean? It means, how strong is that extract? What are they basing it on? So when a medicine is kind of prescribed, it's prescribed at a specific dose because it has an exact amount of a certain active ingredient within it that will do something that we know, because they have run trials with that exact amount, and we know that it's very, very effective. With these, you look at them, it's like so just as an example here, it says fennel seed extract, 500 milligrams. Well, what strength of the fennel seed extract is that? What's it standardized to? Doesn't matter. You could have a pill with a long list of ingredients. You're like, oh wow, it's got everything in it, and they might be so underdosed. Their extract might be so weak that it's not actually doing anything for anybody. It's not enough to have an effect. Like, I'm looking at one of them here. It's the Wild Nutrition Menopause Complex that you sent over to me as well, and a 2 capsule serving, which has lots and lots of little things in it, has 114 milligrams of magnesium, for example, and ashwagandha 200 milligrams. Both of those are under the recommended dose that has been shown to be beneficial within studies. And that's because the more you put into a capsule, like, bear in mind, it's fairly precious real estate. Capsules are small size. You can't fit everything into it. No. So you just put in a load of things at underdosed amounts, and they may or may not have an effect.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, the interesting thing that I see with the difference between the Happy Mammoth and the Wild Nutrition is the top ingredient, the one that's got the most in it, is the vitamin B6 at 1.7 milligrams in Happy Mammoth. And that's the lowest ingredient, vitamin B6, on 1.4 milligrams on Wild Nutrition.
Yeah, actually the doses are very, very similar of the B6 and in both of them. But like, here's the thing I'll say. I actually think of all the supplements out there, I think a vitamin B complex is actually a useful one to take for some people, particularly people who are going through a lot of stress, or particularly for athletes as well, because they just burn through so much energy. I take a B complex just for stress, because I am a natural stressor.
Well, it sounds like you're not sleeping. You're sleep deprived.
and all of the other things going on in my life. So I take that and I find it useful. But maybe for me it's a placebo. It's not something that I recommend regularly. And if I ever recommend a B complex to somebody, I'll just say, give it a try. It might help. It might not. But like all of the other things in here, one thing that's really important to point out is around time of menopause, women are often sold this idea that you need to be doing things naturally, and natural is better. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is not natural because they use synthetic hormones. Means nothing. They're bioidentical to what you have in your body. So they're almost looked at as bad. So use these plants instead. But the thing is, when you take a plant, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the memes online where they kind of look at the ingredients in a blueberry. And if you look at what's in a blueberry, it's a list of chemicals, really, really long chemicals. And those are all 100% natural chemicals. Every single one of them. They're all there naturally. They've all got these really, really long names, but they are chemical names. Every plant has a different list of chemicals in there. So when you take a plant extract, you're getting loads and loads of potentially active ingredients. And some may do something good, but others can you can't be guaranteed, you don't exactly know what they're going to do. So you're actually taking far more chemicals by taking a supplement like this, like far more chemicals than you are if you're taking like a HRT, a standard HRT dose.
But isn't that, if we looked at like very addictive drugs, in their natural form, they might be a cannabis plant or a poppy or something like that, but then you change it and it changes that completely to something that is not so natural. So, when we're fiddling with things, it's not the same as the natural product having a different version of whatever that is. It's changed. I might have gone a bit off with the cannabis thing there, but I was thinking, I'm sure that if you change certain mushrooms, if you were to have them in a different way, they would have a different effect on you.
Yeah, but you can also say with the mushroom example, like some mushrooms are edible and some are poisonous, or some
And they
are
look very similar.
Yeah, and some are psychoactive, but they're all totally natural as well.
Yes.
I think that the naturalistic fallacy is another big problem in the world of nutrition as well. Just because something is natural does not mean that it's good.
No.
Like you said, opium produced from poppy seeds that caused some fairly major issues around the world and still does.
Yeah, but in theory, plant-based.
Plant-based. There you go.
There you go. And I think that's the thing, just to finish on, it's those buzzwords, they sound impressive, but actually they mean very little. And I know that you did a post recently saying if anyone calls himself a biohacker, then walk away. But I guess that's the thing that we need to be able to watch out for, those red flags for people sharing their views on nutrition. And I guess one of those is going to be, are they selling supplements? Because they're probably going to tell you the thing there. But what are your main buzzwords, red flags peptides I'm seeing a lot in discussion at the moment as well, because probably because of GLP-1, but peptides are in naturally occurring things, aren't they?
They absolutely are. Yeah. But does that mean that you should be taking peptides that have been manufactured in an unknown factory in China and smuggled in the country, whatever way they're smuggled in, and then sold to you at the back of a gym, Well,
I saw a reel recently saying they're not even, one of them had none of the peptide that they said was in it. Yeah. And then it said that it had trace of lead and arsenic. Now, I was really interested in that. So I was like, where are you getting these from? And they're sold on websites in the UK. I was like, that is bonkers that people can go and buy things. Yeah. So don't buy back market peptides, please. Anyone listening to this, you don't need them. In fact, don't buy back market anything like that, any medical thing. You just go to your doctor. But anything else before we go that you think that would help us navigate the world of supplements out there or could be helpful?
I think if something, and I've said this before, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Okay. So if somebody is claiming that a certain supplement or anything, a certain diet does everything, cures cancer, it'll improves heart health, it'll help you lose weight, it'll help you gain weight, it'll help you build muscle, you can tell that that sounds a little bit too good to be true, maybe not something I should be listening to. And then the biohacker one is very, very true. Anybody who I've seen use that in their title, and if I look at the content that they put out, it is insanely bad. Like it's just, the biohacker title is basically a person who has spent some time reading a number of different blog posts or forums online, or listen to a few podcasts, and now they think they have hacked the system. You don't hack biology. You eat a good diet, you exercise, you sleep well, and then it kind of takes care of it. For the most part.
And that is the annoying thing for people, I think, is unfortunately, you can be given all the advice in the world, but unfortunately, the changes need to come down to you making that change in the way that feels manageable for you. But it comes down to looking at it and reflecting on what's working and what isn't, and then making those steps rather than, unfortunately, taking a supplement to fix it all.
Yeah, but like we live in a world where people just want a quick solution,
I mean, it would be lovely, wouldn't it?
It would.
If it, yeah. But unfortunately, it's not that. And that's why I feel so strongly about just making change that has you feeling good now and then in the future too, because I think we are fixated on what makes us feel good now, and a lot of that can be a bit of a reframe in the mind. I move because it makes me feel good. I eat this food because it gives me more energy. It makes me feel better. And then the outcome is I'll also be healthier in the future, which is good
Exactly.
too. But yeah. Oh, look, thank you so much. I could have talked to you about a lot of other things, because there is so much in not only supplements, but in the world that you work in, that is just so interesting. So can you just give us your Instagram handle for those that are wanting to go and find you if they haven't already?
Sure, of course. And look, thank you so much for the chat today. It was an absolute pleasure. A lot of fun little segues as well. So it's Dr. Richie Kirwan. So that's dr.richie.kirwan, and that's Richie, Richie, no T in there. And yeah, that's where I'm most active on social media terms.
Definitely go and give him a follow. Thank you so much. And yes, as always, segues. You're lucky that I didn't just blurt out other things that I was thinking it can happen. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ruth.